Hello everybody, welcome back to Starship Simulator. I did a video last week with the two training modes and they went absolutely bonkers with views. And it was a very long video and I just bought a new PC and so I didn't get things quite lined up right, so the volume wasn't very good. It was a bit jumpy on the recording. I've sorted all that problems out now with the new computer. So what I'm going to do now is do a few more videos on this, but I'm going to do one video for the cold start sequence and one video for the scanning and navigation, and then we'll do a live mission for a third video as well. So let's jump straight in to the engineering cold start sequence, and yeah, we'll get this video up and running. So this is the most realistic Starship game you'll ever find. You can link. I'll link Dan's YouTube channel to the description below. But let's jump in, and yeah, we'll find the ship in a dark and cold state. We have to reopen it all up.
Welcome to the Magellan-class Cold Start training module. My name is Ava. I'm the UN Space Fleet's AI voice assistant. In this module, we will review the correct procedure for starting up the ship's fusion reactor and then supplying power to the vessel. The ship is currently in a cold and dark state, so for your safety, I have taken the liberty of turning on your torch for you. To begin, follow the waypoints on your HUD to the lower floor of the reactor room.
Right, so this game is, like I said, one of the most realistic Starship Simulator games in the making right now. It's from Fleet Yard Studios, and like I say, Dan and his wife Claire. It's so realistic. When this game is up and running, you're going to be able to do anything in the ship. It's going to be like living on a real ship. So like even like the panels, you've got F deck, aft, panel 221 right, and then you've got panel 221 left. All these will be able to come off, and it'll look like this with insulation behind, and behind that will be all wires. But basically everything's going to be connected. Like every single light in the ship, every single screen, every single thing electrical has got a wire connecting to it, and yeah, any wire can go at any time through wear and tear, through through damage, through all sorts. Every water pipe will have connected. Every water pipe will be connected to a tap, and or any of those can burst as well. So yeah, we find the ship in a dark state, so we have to get the ship up and running now. So that's the mission for this. So yeah, as you can see, it's still a work in progress. There's still a lot of empty rooms, but there's enough done for him to have done these tutorials. So we're going to go to the reactor room as instructed on F deck. And yeah, let's get this baby up and running. Let's get some power. So there's the upper F deck of engineering. The main deck is down on G deck though, so let's go down to G deck.
As you can see, the reactor is offline, and none of the ship's systems are powered. Our first task is to provide power to the engineering decks, so let's make our way to the start capacitors room. Follow the waypoints on your HUD to the startup distributor.
Right, so we're going to go to the startup distributor room on G deck, because obviously there's no power in here, so we need to get it up and running. This room actually isn't complete right now, but they have completed the actual power distribution. But look how realistic this is. And if you're an engineer on this ship, you're gonna have to know all this. So it's quite extensive. But there's other roles as well. There's like helm. There's navigation. There'll be tactical. But yeah, we're playing as an engineer, and we're getting the ship up and running, ready for the staff to arrive.
As its name suggests, the startup distributor routes energy from the start capacitors to the engineering decks, and also provides the reactor with the power it needs to create the initial fusion reaction. You'll notice the device is already powered, because the start capacitors are fully charged. Let's go ahead and get some lights on by connecting all of the breakers.
Right,
Start with the G-deck breakers, as indicated.
So this is the main startup distributor. So when you're in a cold and dark state, the first thing you need to do is supply power from the start capacitors, which is already charged, and you're going to bring it into this internal bus, and you're going to bring it to the reactor room itself, to G deck, which is engineering, one we're on now, and F deck, which is upper engineering. So we need to connect the power to those rooms. Now we're not actually, going to be providing power import. All we're doing is connecting the power circuit. So there's lots more to do after this. But yeah, let's get started as suggested. Let's get power into G deck.
And now the F deck breakers.
So you can see the emergency lighting has come on because we've now got power to the deck. Like I said, we haven't actually done anything with that power yet. We're only supplying the feed. So that's why the emergency lighting is on and not the normal lighting. We're going to have to turn all the normal lights on. But anyway, let's get the upper engineering deck on as well.
And finally, the reactor supply itself.
Right, and then we'll feed power connection straight to the reactor as well.
Excellent. Now we can see what we're doing. You can go ahead and turn off your torch by pressing T. The reactor controls should now be online, so let's walk back to the reactor room and take a look.
Okay, I turned my torch off, but I'm going to leave it on actually because it's quite dark for the video. But yeah, so there we are. We're now supplying power to those 3 decks. Well, the 2 decks and the reactor. So now we need to go back to the reactor room and we need to do something with that power supply to get it up and running. So there's the main reactor controls. Let's go and take a look.
This console displays the reactor's vital information and provides you with full control over the reactor and its subsystems. On the left-hand side we have the coolant section, which shows the liquid helium coolant flow and the condition of the magnetic field coils. On the right-hand side we have the electrical section, which shows the reactor's main electrical bus, along with its input and output feeds. In the center, we have the reactor's main display, where we can control the fusion reaction itself. As you can see from all of these alarms, it would be impossible to initiate a stable fusion reaction under the current conditions, so let's fix that. The first thing we need to do is supply power to the reactor's internal bus, so go ahead and switch the reactor to startup mode by pressing the indicated button.
Right, so just a quick recap on this then. To get the engine up and running, the reactor up and running, we're in isolate mode at the minute, so we need to put it in startup mode, which will feed from the reactor start that we just switched on. We can now connect that electricity, and that will give electricity to the reactor. Now that'll do 2 things. We can use the vacuum pump to get the pressure down, and also we can use it to supply power for the helium and helium-3 needed to cool the reactor down as well. So at the minute we need to be able to cool it down because it's too high temperature. We need by switching the flow on of the helium supply, and we also need to provide the deuterium and the helium-3 and the vacuum power to be able to get the pressure down to get the reactor going. So anyway, let's go into startup mode.
Great. Now that the reactor has power, we can activate the vacuum pump to start purging the confinement chamber.
Right, so we've connected the power there. It's now going live into the reactor. Again, we're not powering the reactor, we're just supplying power to it. So let's get the vacuum pump going, which will get the pressure down.
The chamber pressure should now be dropping. To sustain a fusion reaction, we need an internal pressure of less than 10 nanopascals. While we wait for the confinement chamber to reach its target pressure, let's take care of the reactor's fuel and coolant supplies. Exit the reactor room via the door behind you, and follow the waypoints on your HUD to the cryogenic storage room.
Right, so now we've got the pump going and we've got the pressure going down. We need to supply cooling and fuel for the reactor. We need to do that by going to the cryogenic storage room, and we're going to do that now. We're going to be able to get the flow going of helium and also get the helium-3 and deuterium flowing as well. So next task, get the engine, the reactor up and running by giving it the cooling, and the fuel. So here we are.
These storage tanks hold all of the cryogenic fluids that are used to both fuel and cool the reactor. All 4 tanks are currently empty, so our first task is to begin the filling process. Let's start with the helium coolant. Head behind the storage tanks to access the helium cryo cooler.
Right, it's just a few things. We've got 4 tanks here. The reactor itself uses 2 parts deuterium, which is these 2 tanks here, to 1 part helium-3, which is this tank here. You've also got another helium tank there, which was used for the cooling of the reactor. So helium for cooling of the reactor, helium-3 for the fuel, and deuterium 2 tanks worth there. This is the output. This connects all these screens here, will control the flow into the reactor. But for now, we need to actually fill the tanks because they're empty. And that's done by the input area, which is around the back. So let's go around the back to the input area to get the tanks filled.
The cryocoolers use a process called magnetic refrigeration to convert gas into a cryogenic fluid, before pumping it into the connected storage tank. Start up the helium cryocooler now by using the indicated control on its user interface.
Right, so what we're going to do is do the helium first. It has got an inflow and an outflow. So let's go and start the helium cylinder first.
Excellent. Now if you turn around, you'll find the helium refill valve located on the back wall. These valves control the flow of gases harvested by the ship's gas collection hardware, which is located on the underside of the forward hull. Go ahead and open the helium supply valve now to begin supplying the cryocooler with helium gas.
Right, so all we've done there was we supplied the tank with power. Now we need to get the flow up and running. So if we look at the flow pipe and go across, it's the top one there, look, and it's there. So helium valve 2, open it up.
If you turn around again and inspect the display screen connected to the helium tank, you should be able to confirm that the tank is now filling with fluid. We now need to perform the same sequence of events for the other 3 tanks. Head over to the helium-3 cryocooler next.
Right, so it says 3 tanks, but there's actually 4 because the
Helium-3 is the first of 2 fuels used in the fusion reaction. As before, power up the device using its user interface.
Right, sorry, I walked into that trigger. So yeah, it says 3 tanks, but there's 4 because they're classing those 2 there as 1 because it's 2 parts deuterium. But yeah, we're going to do the same for helium-3 now. So we can see that helium is filling up. This tank is filling up. Up to 4,000 litres right now. You can see it going up. So now we need to fill this tank up with helium-3, which is 1 part of the fuel. So let's get it online.
And now open the helium-3 refill valve behind you to start filling its associated tank.
And let's release the helium-3
Next,
into the
we need
tank.
to start filling the 2 deuterium tanks. So let's head over to the other side of the room.
So you can see helium-3 starting to come in now, 400, 500, 600 litres. So we've got helium-3 going in and helium. Now let's do the same for deuterium tanks.
Deuterium, also known as heavy hydrogen, is the second of the 2 fusion fuels. We store double the amount of deuterium compared to helium-3 because deuterium also fuels the reactor's neutral beam injectors. As before, turn on the first deuterium cryocooler.
Okay, so yeah, we'll get this one up and running. So this is deuterium we're doing now.
And now the first deuterium refill valve behind you.
I'm just
Next,
doing exactly the
turn on
same
the
again.
second deuterium cryocooler.
You'll see it's starting to go up now as well. So second deuterium tank, let's get some power to it.
And now the second deuterium refill valve.
And let's get it refilled.
Okay, perfect. All 4 storage tanks should now be filling with cryogenic fluids. For our next task, we now need to engage the cryopumps in order to start supplying the reactor with everything it needs. Make your way around to the other side of the tanks and locate the deuterium tank outflow valve.
Right, so we've powered on the tanks and we've pumping fluid into the tanks. Now what we need to do is release the tanks into the reactor room. So that's what we're going to do now.
Open the deuterium outflow valve to begin supplying fluid to its connected cryopump.
Right, so what we're going to do now is, so you've only got one set of panels here. You've got two screens for the two tanks, but you've only got one master screen for the deuterium. Over the other side, you've got two screens, because basically one's for helium-3, one's for helium. So let's release the deuterium so the reactor can get access to it, or by switching on the supply pump.
Next, power on the pump itself using the button indicated on its user interface. Excellent. That's half of the fuel mix taken care of. Now head over to the helium-3 tank outflow valve so we can complete the fuel supply.
Right, so I guess we're only doing one. Oh no, that's already on, is it? I think that's already on. Right, okay, yeah, so there's the two tanks. They've been supplied. We've rerouted that to the reactor room. Let's do the same for the helium-3 now, and the deuterium.
As before, begin by opening the helium-3 outflow valve.
Okay, so this is the helium-3, so we'll get this supplied on.
And now engage the helium-3 cryopump. Perfect. All we have to do now is take care of the coolant flow. Now open the helium outflow valve.
Right, so then now for the cooling of the tanks, all we've done is fueled the reactor. Now we're going to supply cooling to it. So let's get this one up and running.
And finally, power on the helium. There we go. The reactor is now being supplied with all the fuel and coolant it needs. Follow the waypoints back to the reactor room, where we have just a few more valves to open.
Right, so all we've done now is we've made access to the fuel and the cooling of the reactor, and that should have changed that master screen in the reactor room. So let's go back to the reactor room. You can see how big this is. You've got life support. That's where it would just be in the cryogenic chambers. Engineering control room. You know, startup capacitors. Workshop. It's so detailed, this game. It's going to be absolutely unreal. Anyway, back to the reactor room. So now everything is supplied to the reactor. We just need to open it all up in the reactor room. So let's go and do that now.
To complete the coolant loop, open the helium inflow valve to start flowing coolant through the magnetic field coils.
So again, we've got helium supply we can open up, and this helium retrieval to bring it back out again. So all we're going to do is open up the supply valve.
Now make your way around to the opposite side of the reactor to complete the fuel supply process.
So now it's been supplied with helium to cool it down. Now let's supply the fuel.
First, open the deuterium inflow valve.
Okay, so we're first going to supply the deuterium and then the helium-3. Again, there's the retrieval if you want to empty it, but we're going to fill it up. So here we go. Open the deuterium.
And now open the helium-3 inflow valve.
And helium-3.
Okay, great. Let's head over to the reactor controls and take a look at the coolant display.
So now that's being supplied with everything it needs, and that'll be showing up on the master control now.
As you can see, we now have coolant flowing into the reactor. This has begun the process of cooling down the magnetic field coils, which must reach temperatures below 20 Kelvin in order to become superconductive. The temperatures look good. You can now power up the field coils.
Right, so we're supplying it with coolant. It successfully cooled the temperatures down, and now we're going to start the field coils of the reactor going. Let's do that.
With a solid vacuum established, the field coils powered up, and fuel flowing into the reactor, you are now free to initiate the fusion reaction.
Okay, so we're going to get the engine up and running now. So we've got everything we need. It's not going to start going full blast at 100%. It just loads up 10% to start with. It's like you don't want to blow a fuse when you switch the power on. So it just brings it on minimal power to start with. And again, all we're doing is activating the reactor. We're not powering the ship yet or anything like that. All we're doing is getting the reactor up and running. So let's go and initiate the reactor now.
Congratulations! You have now successfully started the fusion reactor. For safety, the reactor automatically starts up at only 10% of its rated power. This means high voltage systems, such as the FTL drive, will be underpowered until you increase the reactor output. Let's resolve that now. Increase the power level to 100% using the indicated controls.
Right, so we're going to go up to 100% now. You can go over 100%. You know, like when you're in Star Trek and Captain Kirk says, "I need more power," and Scotty goes, "I'm giving her all she's got, Captain." That's because it's on 110%. So yeah, let's go up to 100%. Let's get this thing fully powered.
You'll notice that you can increase the power beyond 100%, but doing so for an extended period will overheat the reactor, causing damage and forcing an uncontrolled shutdown. Okay, we now need to provide power to the rest of the ship. With the reactor now powering itself, you can go ahead and switch the internal bus mode from startup to supply.
Right, so at the minute we're still being supplied by the power in the reactor feed. What we need to do now is switch to the main fuel from the reactor to power everything. So what we're going to do is cut it off the startup and release the supply. That's what we're going to do now. So let's get that switched over.
Perfect. If we now head around to the opposite side of the reactor output distributor should now be powered up.
Right, so here we are. Everything's running on the reactor now. One thing to note is that we still have to allocate this power. So that's what we're going to do now. The ship is not powered by the reactor itself. Only 5 segments, and there's the screens for them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll take a look now and show you what exactly is powered by the reactor itself.
This device distributes the reactor's output to the ship's high voltage systems, which are in fact the only systems powered directly by the reactor. The rest of the ship is powered by 48 individual battery arrays, which we now need to begin charging using the reactor's output. Go ahead and connect all 5 of the output breakers here.
Right, so there's the reactor feed. We've now got the reactor up and running. We've got a live load of, 100 megavolts. Anyway, so the reactor itself only powers the sublight distributor, the weapons distributor, shields distributor, FTL distributor, which is like the warp drive, and the batteries. Now, everything in this ship, everything electrical, apart from those 4 systems here, is run through the batteries. So this is probably the most important thing to get the ship powered. All the lights, all the panels, all the electricity, all the replicators, everything's done through the battery distributors. There are 6 battery rooms, each holding 6 battery packs, and each battery pack is holding 10 different batteries. So that's like 480 individual batteries you have to sort of maintain. So let's go and flick these on. As we flick the power onto these, we'll have a master panel switch on over this side. So we'll do that now.
Excellent. If you turn to your left, you'll see the 5 high voltage distributors are now coming online. Head over to the main battery distributor.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. I think I did press it, but it didn't register for some reason. It is still a work in progress, the game. So these are the master screens now, so if we take a look at these. So that there, the main reactor bus, was obviously this one here. The sublight propulsion. And that gets divided into the different thrusters and engines of the ship. We've got the weapons distributor, which go into the different weapons arrays. We've got the shield system, which goes into the different shield generators and capacitors.
This device takes the high voltage reactor feed
close to that
and
trigger
distributes
again.
it to each of the 8 battery rooms on F deck. Go ahead and connect all 8 output breakers.
Right, and then we've got the FTL system, which powers all the different engines and thrusters. And then we have the most important panel, the battery panel. I did say 6 rooms, there are 8 rooms, sorry about that. So we have 4 main quadrants to the ship. That's how it's powered. So we have forward quadrants, we've got forward distributor room 1, forward distributor room 2, then we have starboard 1 and starboard 2, which is like a backup, aft 1, aft 2, port 1, port 2. So all the power goes through a quarter of the ship, and each quarter has a backup room as well. So there are 8 different rooms holding 6 battery units, which hold 10 batteries in each. So yeah, there's your 480 batteries. Something of note, we are feeding off the main reactor. You can also have an external feed connected. If you were like connected to a starbase or another big ship, you can draw power from them. You can also draw power from the solar arrays as well, which is like obviously solar power. Each of these can charge the batteries. But yeah, all we're going to do is we're running off the main reactor output. Now we need to charge the batteries, which is going to supply the entire ship with power. So let's get these battery rooms operational.
Perfect. The battery arrays should now be charging, but we should perform a visual inspection to make sure. Follow the waypoints on your HUD to port battery room 1.
Right, so we've got all the battery rooms charging now. Power's being supplied to the batteries. They are starting to charge. All we're going to do now is double check to make sure they are actually being charged. So the battery rooms are on F deck, so we need to go back upstairs to the battery rooms. And all we're going to do is just double check that they are being charged. Make sure that everything's okay. These are the rooms back here. And again, look how detailed this is. Look at the rooms on F deck. Life support, cryogenics, engineering control again. But now we've got all these battery rooms, you see? There's your 8 battery rooms on F deck. This supplies the entire ship. Anyway, let's go to the port battery room 1 and let's take a look at the battery charging.
The electrical supply on Magellan-class starships is divided into 4 isolated quadrants: forward, aft, port, and starboard. For increased redundancy, each quadrant is powered by 2 physically isolated battery rooms just like this one. Should the battery arrays in one room cease to function for any reason, the arrays in the second room will continue providing power to that particular quadrant. Similarly, power to one quadrant can be lost entirely, without impacting the supply to the remaining 3 quadrants. Okay, let's take a look at one of the individual battery arrays.
Okay, so here are the 6 different battery units. If we take a look, you can see they're being charged. 6%, 6.1%, so they are being charged. Now, again, it's unfinished, so they will have 10 individual batteries in here when it's done, and obviously each battery needs to be maintained, and you can do that through here. So you've got a supply distributor, and you've got an aggregator, which is a external out. So you know, you've got power in and power out basically, and you can turn off each individual battery, turn it off and unmount. You can disconnect the whole unit as well if you want to, you know, change the units, all the batteries. And obviously, if you're working with electricity, you might want to turn the whole thing off anyway while you're changing one battery that might have died. And obviously, you can turn the entire room off from the reactor core itself. But for now, yeah, we're just going to take a look at this one over here because that's what it's wanting us to do.
On the left-hand side of the user interface, you have controls for managing the input and output breakers. And in the center, you have controls and information relating to this array's 10 solid-state battery cells. If we did everything correctly, all of the cells should now be slowly charging up. For the next step, we now need to connect each of the 8 battery rooms to the ship's electrical grid. This task will take us into the ship's labyrinth of maintenance tunnels, so be sure to watch your head. Follow the waypoints on your HUD to port battery aggregator 1.
Right, so now all we've done is powered the batteries. We haven't actually connected anything yet, which is why the lights aren't working and nothing else is working. So what we're going to do now is we're not going to touch the distributors, but we're going to turn on all the aggregators so we can get the power out to the ship, and that's in the bowels of the ship, which is behind the battery rooms. So let's go and take a look at that now. This is now the maintenance area. We'll take a look at the first aggregator.
Each battery room has a corresponding battery aggregator, just like this one. These devices perform load balancing and also combine each room's 6 individual battery arrays into a single high-voltage feed. Go ahead and connect the output breaker now, which will connect this set of battery arrays to the ship's electrical grid.
Right, so now we're going to supply power to the ship, basically. So we're not going to touch the distributors because that's the incoming power supply. All we're going to touch is the outgoing supply. So you can see here, this is the room behind, the room we've just been in. These are the individual units that we've just looked at, the 6 individual units. Now we're going to connect all those 6 units in that room in front of us to the main port deck distributor board. So let's do that now.
Okay, 1 down and 7 more to go. Next, head over to port battery aggregator 2.
Right, so the port side of the ship is now able to draw power from that battery room there. We're going to do the same for battery room 2, the backup room.
As before, connect this aggregator's output breaker. That takes care of the port battery rooms. Let's make our way to the forward quadrant next.
Right, so the port quadrant and the port quadrant backup are now up and running. So if you're on the port side of the ship, you can draw power now from the battery room. We're going to do the same for the other 3 quadrants, so let's go around. Again, this is the distributor panels, which we're not going to touch because we don't want to mess with the distributor panels. It's just the aggregator panels, sorry. So let's go to this one.
Go ahead and connect the output breaker.
Okay, so this is the forward battery room 1.
And the same again on forward battery aggregator 2.
And the backup for the forward battery aggregator.
Okay, onwards to the starboard quadrant.
Then we'll do the same for the starboard. So these are the distributors. Again, the inputs, we're not going to touch that. Just the outputs.
Same again. Connect the output breaker.
So now we're on to starboard battery array 1.
And the second starboard aggregator.
And starboard battery array 2, the backup.
Almost done. Just the aft quadrant to go.
Right, now let's do the aft of the ship. And then all quadrants of the ship is going to be able to have access to power now.
Connect up the first aft aggregator. And finally, the second aft aggregator. Okay, perfect. All 48 of the ship's battery arrays are now connected to the electrical grid. All we have to do now is supply power to the ship's remaining decks, and then perform a few cleanup tasks. We can do most of that from the reactor room, so let's head there now. Follow the waypoints on your HUD to the forward deck distributor.
Right, so all the ship has got access to power now. All we need to do now is activate the power on all the decks. Do you see how complicated this is? This is like real life stuff. Everything is fed like it's real life. So we're back down on G deck now, the bottom lower levels. And let's go back to the reactor room.
Each deck in a given quadrant is fed by a deck distributor, which takes the total electrical load of that quadrant, and then load balances it between the 2 connected battery aggregators. Go ahead and connect the output breakers for all 7 decks in this quadrant.
Right, so what we're going to do now is, you can see there's going to be 4 of these panels across the room. This is the deck distributor. So for the forward quadrant, you know, we've just come from the back where we've put aggregator room 1 battery power, aggregator room 2 battery power. Now we need to connect those master rooms to the decks. So let's supply power to the forward A deck, forward B deck, forward C deck, and etc, etc. You should see the light start to come on now, I think, as we actually supply power to the deck, but we'll see.
Okay, now head over to the starboard deck distributor.
Okay, yeah,
and do
not
the
quite
same.
yet. Okay, we've got another step to go yet. So let's do the distributor for the starboard quadrant. Let's get power to the decks from the quadrant. And again, they're the 2 master battery rooms that we've just connected. Now we're going to connect those 2 master battery rooms to all the decks on the starboard
And now
quadrant.
the aft deck distributor.
Now the aft deck. Let's get the power supplied to the aft decks. Sorry, the aft quadrant decks.
And finally, the port deck distributor.
And the port deck distributors, let's get some power on to those.
Perfect. All quadrants on every deck now have power available from the ship's main battery arrays. You'll notice, however, that the ship is still under emergency lighting conditions, because F and G decks are still using the start capacitor's supply. To resolve this, we simply have to switch the 4-quadrant distributors on F and G decks over to the main battery feed. Head over to the G deck forward quadrant distributor.
Right, so because we went into startup mode from the start, we just need to transfer the power from startup to main rooms. So A deck, B deck, C deck, D deck and E deck are all now working properly. But because we was in startup mode in engineering, F and G deck, we just need to switch from supply mode back to the reactor power now, or the battery power. So let's go and do that now.
Each deck has 4 of these devices, 1 for each quadrant. They are fed by the corresponding deck distributor. Go ahead and switch this quadrant over to the main battery feed.
Okay, so they are all connected, as you can see there. So they have got access to power, but we are still running on, you know, startup. We're still running on startup distributors. So let's flick to the main battery power units now, and we should see, I think, the lights come on. I'm not sure. Let's take a look.
That's better. Now we can really see what we're doing.
There we go.
Now head over to the starboard quadrant distributor and do the same.
Yes, there we go. So let's go do the same for the G deck starboard.
And now the aft quadrant distributor.
Now the aft starboard. Sorry, the aft deck.
And finally, the port quadrant distributor.
And the port, so them lights should come on over there.
That's G deck taken care of. Let's do the same for F deck. Head upstairs to the F deck forward quadrant distributor.
So we've got full power down on G deck. Let's do the same for F deck. Same again.
As before, switch this device over to the main battery feed.
Okay, you should see all the lights come on in the main rings, because obviously it's connected now.
And now the same on the starboard quadrant distributor.
Oh, something came on. Maybe that's the one over there. Okay, let's do this.
And again on the aft quadrant distributor. And finally, the port quadrant distributor.
Yeah, sorry, these lights are this one here. So now these lights should come on. You can see over there the lights are on down there. That was the first one we did. So we're going to do this last quarter here now.
Well done. That's the main objectives of the cold start procedure complete. But we have one final bonus task to perform. Follow the waypoints on your HUD up to the bridge, and we'll make the ship flight ready.
Right, so lights are on. Before we do that, I'm just going to go and... I need a screenshot of the engine. So let's go and just come down here. Well, can I get a good screenshot of the engine? Oh, I've got the Ava in the way now. I might have to do that at the end. Okay, so let's go. We've got one more task to do. We've got a few maintenance stuff to do on the bridge. So we're on F deck. Let's go to A deck. Now, in real life, you would only have to do this once, really, because it's not very often the Starship is going to be in a cold and dark state. You know, maybe when you first come on the ship. But once you've got people living on the ship and you're doing missions, you won't have to do that every time. So it's very rare you're going to have to do this. Maybe if you lose power or something like that, or the reactor goes down, you might have to do a new startup. But yeah, it's a security office, because A deck is a classified area. So going to here, this is the administration of staterooms, deck B, but we're going to go up to deck A. Okay, so now we're in the command center area. Obviously there's a lift there as well if you want to go on the lift. But yeah, bridge is straight ahead, so let's go. We've got all the different rooms. We've got the conference room. Yeah, we've got like the captain's office. It's all powered as well, you notice? But for some reason, the bridge did not power up, so let's go and take a look why.
The lights and bridge systems are still turned off, so let's bring everything online. Head over to the A-deck distributor in the engineering alcove.
Okay, so every single deck has got its own distributor panel as well, so let's go and take a look at this.
Now go ahead and turn on the bridge lighting.
So you can see, there's the main quadrants: forward distributor, starboard distributor, aft distributor, and port distributor. So they're the 4 quadrants. They are connected. And also A-deck lighting and A-deck hardware is connected, which is why we had lights in there. But yeah, we need to do the same for the bridge, because for some reason the bridge is disconnected. It just did this as an example, but it should be online really. But yeah, this is what you can do manually to each different deck. So let's switch the lights on for the bridge.
And now power up the bridge systems.
And let's get the systems up and running. You'll see the screen start to load.
Okay, there we go. You have successfully started the fusion reactor, routed power to all of the ship's decks, and
There we
brought the
go.
bridge online into a flight-ready state. This concludes the Magellan-class cold start training module. Good luck, and I hope you'll join me again in future training modules.
Thank you very much. So there's the cold and dark startup for you guys. So that's going to be it for this episode of Starship Simulator. On the next episode, we're going to do a mission with the sensors. We're going to start scanning a navigation target. Well, for now, thanks for watching, and catch you on the next episode. Bye for now.